Hello and welcome to this online application workshop for study abroad at DTU. First, I'm going to say a little bit about this meeting. This is an online meeting, as you all know. It will be recorded, so we will make the recording available to you as well. Be aware that you cannot unmute your own microphone, but if you have questions, you are more than welcome to ask them. The way this will work is that you will write your questions in the chat function when we're at the end of the presentation. Right now, you can't write any questions in there, but when we are at the very end of the presentations, we'll open up for that so that you can ask the questions, and then we'll answer them at this meeting. Yeah, great. Just a little brief introduction about who we are. My name is Jeppe Duus Dolries. I'm the International Partnership Manager for North America. Today we also have Hannah Østergaard Fogh, who is the International Partnership Manager for our Eurotech partners, which is a university alliance. So some of our very, very good and close partners within the European Union. Briefly about the agenda. Today we'll focus on the application. And to that purpose, we will do it like this. We'll basically run through each section of the application so that we can get into what you need to type in here, what you need to be aware of, and then walk through all of the application process. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the very end. You are more than welcome to do that. Yeah. Now, the first step, of course, is to get to the online application. And as I'm sure that most of you probably know, you basically go to beyondborders.dtu.dk. You click on My Overview, and then you're asked to log into the system. After that, you will be able to click Apply on the application round that is relevant. In this case, of course, will be the application round for fall of 2023. Great. So I think I'll just go ahead and do that so that you can see what it looks like. So right now we are on DTU Beyond Borders, the web page where you can find all sorts of information about the different exchange partners that we have. And in here, you basically just click Login. And once you have logged in, this will, in this case, it knows who I am because I've logged into this computer, and you can see it says my name up here. It should say your name when you log in. But now I'm logged into the system, and then I click on My Overview, which is really sort of the hub for all of the activities you can do in this system. In here, you can see there are some available periods, and that's the application rounds that you can see here. In this case, we're looking at fall 23, which is the application period that's open right now. As you can see here, it says edit for me, and that's because I already have a saved application in the system. If you haven't made an application in the system yet, it would say apply here and not edit, but the functionality is pretty much the same in that it just allows you to go through the application and submit it when you're ready. So I'm just going to click here now, and then hopefully I should get to the application. So this is the first part of the application, which is basically personal info. Oh yeah, by the way, the first time you go through the application, you will meet another page where it says that where you have to give a consent before you can start your application. That has to do with the fact that it will be saved with some of the functionalities automatically. So be aware of that. So so there's a small page that you'll need to consent to before you get to the application. That's only the first time you do it, because once you already have an application in the system, you don't need to consent to that anymore. So since I had a saved application, I could go in here without accessing that page. But This is the first part of the application system, which is really the section with personal information. Right here you can see my name and a lot of other different things about me, and this should hopefully have all the relevant data for you. If there's any errors in this, please let us know, because it is vital that it is correct. But the system doesn't allow you to change it, because this is actually retrieved from some other DTU systems. So if there is an error here, then it's important we get it fixed. Yeah. Here you can also indicate if you have another citizenship. You simply choose the country of the other citizenship if you have more than one. As you can see, your main citizenship should be here. So if this is correct and there's nothing more to say, then you just leave this blank. That's perfectly fine. Here you'll put in your personal email address, which will only be used in case of emergencies, but it is important to have anyway. You'll also put in your telephone number, which can be very helpful as well, both in terms of any emergencies, but also if we need to get a hold of you because we need a clarification of something quickly. In this box, you put in the name, address, email, telephone number for at least one emergency contact. So of course, that is if something goes wrong when you are abroad or something, we need to have a contact for you. Yeah. In this field, you can put in any sort of disabilities or special needs. It could be dyslexia, it could be other kinds of things that should be mentioned, and that has an impact on your everyday life. If it doesn't have an impact on your everyday life, then I don't think we've considered that. Then it's probably not relevant in this context. Great. The last question here is whether you wish to go abroad with another DTU student. And right now you can see the default is that it is no, but if you change it to yes, you'll be asked a bunch of additional questions. Most students don't use this option, but if you are keen to go abroad with another DTU student, then it can be a good idea to do that. There's a lot more information about this on our webpage, and you can also read something in the texts here. And so I'm not going to go into depth with this right now, but if you need more info on that, you should definitely go to studyabroad.dtu.dk, where you can read more about that process and know what to do. It is fairly simple, but of course there are some tweaks to be aware of. And now I'm gonna go to the next section where Hannah will say something about the studies part.
Yes. So the next section that you see here is where you fill in your academic information. So as you can see here, the first field is your DTU study program and which study program you're currently enrolled in. So this information should be retrieved from the system, so it should be correct and state the study program that you're currently enrolled in. So of course, check that out if it's actually the right information. You can see that for Jeppe, it says staff faculty because yes, he is not a student. So that is why it's filled out this way. And in the next section, in the next field, you can see a field saying what's the study program you will be enrolled in during your stay abroad. So mostly this will be the same for many of you as what you're currently studying, but maybe for some of you it will have changed already at the time that you are abroad. Then there's also some other fields, should be pretty straightforward what you need to fill in. Then you also need to do some uploads. For example, you need to upload your transcript of records from your bachelor's degree. So this transcript of records can be, well, from DTU. It can also be from another Danish university, but of course it can also be from a university abroad if you have not studied your bachelor's degree in Denmark. And in the next field, you can see that if you are an MSc student, you also need to upload the current grades that you have obtained at the time. But of course, some of you will not have obtained any grades at the time for upload, even if you're an MSc student. So then you can just ignore this question. leave it blank. So here you need to upload also your GPA calculation sheet. The GPA calculation sheet can be downloaded on our study abroad pages. And the GPA calculation sheet is where you, well, as it says, calculate your GPA for the field. So you can fill in the box that you can see below with your GPA. And this one is really, really important because it's really important for your selection process. So it's really important also that you get this calculation right. So if you have some questions about how to do it, please contact us or the International Study Guidance Office, because we will also do some checkups for some of the applications to see if there are any miscalculations. And if we see that there is, then unfortunately all your applications will be cancelled. So yeah, please get that right. Yeah. So on to the next section.
Sure. So the next section is the priorities section, also a very, very important part of your application. And this is basically where you prioritize all the places that you would want to apply to for the fall of 23. The way you do it is simple. You simply press add priority. And then here you start by saying what is the starting month and end month of the semester for the university that you're applying to. This could, for example, be September to December. And if you're not sure about this, you should always look on Beyond Borders, because there will be in the page on Beyond Borders for the university, it will say something about this. Great. Next, you can actually use, if you have used the favorites function in the system, you can simply click on one of your favorites and it will go down to these boxes. But if you're not using the favorites section, then you can simply skip that part and go straight and type in the specific university. So I'm just gonna do it like this, put in New York University, and then click on the agreement. And then I also get a little notification here that I need a language test for this particular university. Then we put in 3 courses. Could be mathematics, English, right? And since this is an English-speaking university, I'm just going to do like this for all of them. It could also be chemistry, 2, 6, 8, chemical engineering department, and it could be computer science, for example, right? And then department. And these are, of course, just some weird examples that I'm just thinking of right now. It could be anything really. All of the courses you will need to you will need to look at the course database for the specific partner and make sure that the courses you select here that they fall within the agreement. That's really important. So for example, sometimes we only have an agreement with one department at a university. It could be, for example, let's say Technical University of Munich, we might only have an agreement. The agreement may only be with mathematics. Then it's important that all of the 3 courses that you have chosen here are within mathematics, for example. So be aware of that. Now, when you have filled everything in here, you can just say add priority up to application. And then if you wish, you can add one more. I'm just going to do this a little quickly. Of course, this is just to get some info in here. And then you have, I can add this as well. And the neat thing is then I can, if I choose to like say, well, I'd rather go to University of British Columbia than New York University, you can actually change the priorities here by using these buttons by moving them up or down. And if you want to change the courses, you can always tick edit and get back to this and press save changes to application. So that's the way you prioritize your universities. We usually recommend that you have 3 to 4 priorities in your application. You can definitely add more. There's no harm done in adding more. So that's always good. It is, however, very important that you research the priorities well and that you are very aware of the course restrictions on each agreement. And you can read about the course restrictions for each agreement on DTU Beyond Borders on the specific page for that agreement. So so keep that in mind with you when you add your priority. Yeah. And also be aware that, of course, we list a GPA that is relevant for each agreement, where we think it's the likely GPA cut will be, but they can always fluctuate. So it's not set in stone, and you can definitely put in priorities where you don't have the GPA. That is allowed, but it may not be likely that you get selected for that particular partner, though. Great. Oh yeah, and last thing I want to mention about the priorities, one thing that's really important about that is that if you get selected for a place, you cannot change your priorities after that, and you cannot sort of apply again to another university. So for that reason, it is quite important that you think about how you prioritize the different options, because once we have the application on December 1st, it will sort of be a locked system where you can't change it. And then you will most likely, hopefully at least, get selected for one of them, and at that point you can't change in the priorities. So that's really important. Great. I don't think I have anything else to mention here on this page. So I think, Hannah, maybe language information will be the next part here.
Yes. Let's move on. Yeah. So this section is about the language information that you may be required to fill in. So maybe some of you have noticed that on the Beyond Borders pages, it states that you sometimes need to fill in language information that you have registered for a language test or so. It's not the case for all of them, but if you just have one priority which mentions that you need to have a language test, you need to fill out this field. If you only have priorities where it says that you don't need any language test, then you can actually just leave this field blank. That will also be an option. But again, if you have one or more priorities that needs a language test, you will need to upload one. But you don't necessarily need to upload a test. It's also important to know that you can just fill out this field that you have registered for a test. So yeah, so it's yeah, you just need to have registered for one and want to take it at a certain time. Yeah. And then, of course, if you get selected for a place that doesn't require a test and you already registered for a test, then you will probably also have some time to deregister again for that test and hopefully get some refund or some of the amount refunded. But you still need to have registered at the time of the application. The last field down here is where you can state other relevant language competences. It's not a requirement, but maybe if you're going to, let's say, Latin America or France or anything, maybe it can be good to just state, like, if you have some other requirements or competences within the languages that could make it easier for you at your destination, please write that here. Yeah, I think that's more or less it for the language information.
Great. We also have a section here that's called letter of motivation, and in this section you can sort of type in a letter of motivation. Please be aware that this is actually not a requirement. We recommend that you consider doing it, but that's mainly because we know that the process of doing a letter of motivation can actually be a good process for students to highlight why it is they're going abroad and what is important for them. So it's more about the process than the actual outcome in this case. It can be relevant in some cases, but it is very rare. So if at the outset, this will not have an impact on your application as such. The very rare case where it can have an impact is if we have two students who have exactly the same GPA down to 2 decimals, and we only have one spot to allocate. Then we will look at the letter of motivation. So in a case like that, it can come into play, but it is very rare. So keep that in mind when doing it. Don't you spend a lot of time or effort doing it. It's very rare that it plays a big role. But that's not to say that you shouldn't consider your motivations for going abroad. That's a very good idea to do, and I'm sure most of you have already considered that quite in quite depth, to a relevant depth. So that's it. Oh, another point here is very important. This is a maximum of 2,000 characters. So if you try to type in more than that, you will not be able to submit your application. Maybe it will cause some technical errors or something like that. So it is also us saying that, hey, do keep it brief. There's no point in stating a whole lot here. Great. I think that was it for the letter of motivation.
Okay. So the last section here is where you submit or save your application. So there's only 4 questions here, and it's just basically us getting some consent from you so that we, for example, can pass on the data to the host university. That means the university that you will be going to. You can also indicate whether you want us to share your name and DTU email with other DTU students going to the same university. This is not a requirement. You can always say no, but we do recommend that you say yes to this because it's really good to know the DTU students that are going to the same destination, both in terms of before you actually go to the destination, help each other with applications and so on, or also during your stay. So yeah, we recommend that. If we scroll down, you can see that you can save for later. So you can always just fill out some of the info and just save it for later and then go back. You can see here that Jeppe cannot submit the application yet, but this field will of course be read when you can submit because he still needs to fill in some info. You can see the blue fields, what he still needs to fill in to be able to actually submit the application. So once you have submitted your application, you will also receive an email confirmation where you can see all your information, your priorities, and so on. So we also really recommend that you check this out properly, the confirmation, to see if everything is in order. And you can actually, even if you have submitted your application, you can go back, if it's before the deadline, of course, you can go back and you can edit your application still. You just need to be aware that you press the submit application button again, even if you have already submitted it one time. So to get the recent changes. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for the last field. And I think we are about to be done with this. And now we're ready for the questions.
Yeah, before the question section, there is one thing I do want to mention, and that has to do with potential technical errors. Okay, sometimes we do get some technical errors in the system, and there's a couple of things that I would recommend that you do if you encounter that. First of all, it can be a good idea to change the browser, because sometimes the browser settings will create some weird technical errors. And second of all, if that doesn't fix it, then remember to contact us and then we'll have a look at what we can do. Okay. It's also important that you don't fill this in on a tablet or on a cell phone. We have had experiences that has not worked well for students, and that when they submit something using those portals, so to speak, then it doesn't go through. So we recommend highly that you use a standard PC or Mac to try and fill this in. It should be working on the vast majority of systems, but if you encounter any issues, let us know. But a quick fix might simply be to change the browser setting. So or the browser that you're using, and to go to Chrome or to Edge or whatever you like, and see if that solves the issue. And I think with that in mind, it would make sense if you have any questions to ask them in the chat. And maybe somebody have already done that, Hannah.
We have a lot of questions already.
Okay, excellent.
So yeah, I will just start out with the first one. So we have a question that says, the ECTS point completed, if on master's, is it then from the bachelor's degree? For TUM, as an example, can one only take courses from the department applying to, or also other departments there are agreements with? Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the first one. That had to do with the expected number of ECTS obtained, I think, this particular field. And this would normally be the degree that you're currently in. So if you're a master's student, we will know that since you're enrolled in the master's program. So you can just type in whatever number of ECTS you have in your master's program. That is perfectly fine. And of course, for bachelor students, it is pretty self-explanatory. It's simply how much you have in your bachelor's degree up until now. Yeah. Regarding the courses, of course, there was a very also relevant specific question about TUM, and I don't think we should go into the specific agreements here, but I can just say, read on the DTU Beyond Borders page. It should say very clearly how the course restrictions work for each individual agreement. And if you have more questions after reading that, feel free to write the contact person for the individual agreement. There is a contact on each of them, which could be either me or Hannah or some of our colleagues, and they will assist. So so hopefully that's a good way forward here.
Yes. Okay. So the next question, can a gymnasium diploma with English A be used instead of the English test?
So in some cases it can, in some cases it can't. If it can, it will say so on the DTU Beyond Borders page for that specific university. In many cases, for example, in Australia, there are some ways that this could be sufficient. But for example, in the US and Canada, it will not be sufficient. So we will mention it on the DTU Beyond Borders page if it is sufficient. So so feel free to have a look at that and see if it works out for you.
Yeah. So the next question is in Danish. I will just translate it. It's not possible to see the course catalog for all universities, for example, University of Austin, Texas. Besides that, where can you see which courses you're allowed to take as a DTU student?
Okay, so first of all, so it is possible to see courses at University of Texas. Now I know that one particularly well. You just need to create a login, and it is actually explained on the DTU Beyond Borders page that you need to do so. So feel free to do that. It is definitely accessible to you. You just need to create a login in their system. If you encounter other universities where you can't access the courses, feel free to write to the contact because it could be an old link that we haven't been able to update yet, or something like that that is bothering us. So feel free to reach out if you have issues with that. What was the other question, Hannah? That was
didn't you reply to all the questions?
I think that was regarding the course catalog. I think there was one more.
Like you can, besides that, which courses are you allowed to take as a DTU student? Is that the one?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So and regarding that, again, check the course descriptions, like the course on each university. There is a page on Beyond Borders where you can see the course restrictions. So when you read that, it should be clear, hopefully, what courses you are allowed to take. It's not like we have a complete list of courses, so you'll need to look at the course restrictions and consider that when you look at the university's web pages for courses and see how they match up. So there's no like a clear list, unfortunately. That's impossible to make with 120 partners. So that's the way that it works, and so it will take a little bit of digging on your end, but that's the way we can do it, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. If I upload the wrong document, GPA calculation sheet, is it possible to change that? I can't see whether it is the correct document or not. Does it automatically override the previously uploaded document?
It does. So that's the way you do it. You simply upload it again, and then it will override that.
Okay. If you fulfill the language requirements by having obtained a BSc in English, is it then enough to upload your diploma from that BSc?
Yes, if that is sufficient. I can say for at least a lot of places in the US and Canada, that would not be sufficient. So again, check the English requirements and be sure that it would in fact be sufficient. But if it is, then of course that would be valid documentation and work well.
Yeah. If you have changed study line and got some courses transferred to your current bachelor, do the courses you didn't transfer from your previous bachelor then count in the GPA if it was another bachelor at DTU?
So no, they don't. It will be the courses that are part of your current degree that would comprise or make up the GPA. So in that way, if you have transferred courses from another degree that are now part of your current degree, then they would count. But if you decided not to transfer them, then they wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay, so the next is, you said there was something that was very important under studies. I did not write it down. What was it you said? And is Karakterblad the same as Karakterudskrift PDF from DTU Insight?
So the last question is the easy one. That would be yes. For this part, we just need the PDF that you can get from Insight. That should be perfectly fine, as long as you're a bachelor from DTU. And I think the important part that we stressed here is the GPA calculation sheet, and that you do that correctly and upload it here, and also that the GPA that you have on your GPA sheet matches what you fill in this particular field. So I think that's the part that we usually highlight about this page.
Yeah. Okay. What happens if one does not score high enough on the language test? And when do we know where we are going in regards to what date one could sign up for the language test, January or February?
Okay, so so most likely we will be able to give an answer to all, so that you know where you have been selected to go, or if you've received a rejection, which would be unfortunate, but sometimes happens, of course. You would most likely know that before Christmas, and probably at some point in the middle of December, but it's a little tough to say. Sometimes it takes a little longer than other times. So before Christmas, you should definitely have a response. Everything beside that would be out of the ordinary. Regarding the language tests, so if you don't live up to the score that is required, then you will have to retake the test. That's basically it. So it happens, but it is quite rare that it happens to students. For the same reason, it's a pretty good idea to take the test early if you're not sure if you can make the requirement. In this section, however, we also have this recommendation that you sign up for the test in no later than mid-January. And that's for the same reason, so that it is pretty early so that you may be able to retake it should you not meet the requirement the first time around. Another thing that is quite important though is that the reason we have it this early is that because we do have some partners that have an application deadline that's in February at some point. So if you need to have taken the test and have the result, then you need to take it no later than that, in case you need it for the application for a partner in February, right? So keep this in mind when signing up for a language test. That is quite important, actually. Yeah.
Okay. The courses you choose in the priorities section, are those the final choices, or can you change them after you have been chosen for the given university?
Very important point again. Yeah, so they are not binding at all, so you can definitely change them 100 of times before you go. It's not binding. It is so that we can see what you are hoping to do. And so we will use it as a tool in our selection process, knowing that you have studied the specific agreement and stuff like that, but you can definitely change it before you go. So they are not binding in that way.
Okay. On many of the universities in the US, the workload appears to be 60 ECTS. How is this possible?
So that's a misconception, actually. The workload is not 60 ECTS. That's just the way the conversion is written in Beyond Borders. So it, for example, will be that 30 credits equals 60 ECTS. So that just means that 30 credits is the same as 60 ECTS in Denmark. So the workload wouldn't be 60. That would just be a way of converting from one system to the other.
Okay. What if my IELTS or English exam expires before the exchange begins?
Oh, sorry about this. So I think we actually also do mention this. So if you already have a completed test, it must be valid at least 6 months after the application deadline. So the application deadline is 1st of December, and that would then make it 1st of May or something like that, I think, or 1st of June, that it would have to be valid until. If it's not valid for that period, you will actually have to take a new test or sign up for a new test before applying. So hopefully that answers the question. In some cases, if it is like that, then we can always have a dialogue with the partner and see if it's valid for enough. But this is the outset. If it's not valid for 6 months after the application deadline, then you should expect that you will have to take a new test.
Okay. I was wondering how it is with the priorities. I think it is more likely that I get a spot when having more priorities, but does it also mean to have a lower chance to get my one of my first priorities when having more priorities, or the other way around? Yeah. Is it more likely to get my first priority when I put in less priorities?
So no, it's not. The way we look at it is that we go through your application, and then for example, in a case like this, we would look at the first priority, and then consider, could we select this student to go to University of British Columbia? And if we can't select that student to go to University of British Columbia, for example, because there are no more exchange spots, they've been taken by a lot of other students, then we will simply go to the next priority. So it will not be a sort of, it will not hurt your second priority that you had a first priority. And likewise, if I had a third or fourth or fifth or 10th priority down here, it won't hurt the priorities above. So it will never be a disadvantage to have more priorities. It will only make it more likely that you are actually selected for one of them. But be aware, of course, that if you put a lot of priorities in, then you may get selected for one of them. So be sure that you actually want to go to the priorities you put in. Your application as such will not be better or worse, or you won't be more likely to get a certain priority by putting in other priorities in that way. So hopefully that was clear. If not, feel free to ask again. Yeah.
Okay. I have changed a study program. When I print my grades from DTU, the grades from the former program still appear. Do I only use the courses that I got merit for from my old program and my new program grades, or do I use all the old grades from my old program to calculate the GPA?
You only use the courses that are part of your current program. And that would be the courses that you've taken as part of your program, or the courses that you have transferred in as part of your current program. Any courses you've taken on other educations at DTU or elsewhere will not be counted as part of your GPA.
Should the course names in your GPA calculator include course number, and do the names need to be in English?
So that's actually up to you. It doesn't matter too much. As long as we can see what course it is, you can simply type in the number. That's perfectly fine.
What if I'm not 100% sure about the courses I want to take from now?
But that's okay. That's understandable. I would recommend that you look at the courses available, and then you need to put some courses in here to indicate what sort of plan you have. You don't need to be sure of that plan, because like I mentioned before, the courses are not binding. So it won't be like, for example, if this application was accepted for New York University, it's not like we would say that then you have to take Math 206 and so on. You will be able to change this a number of times before you go abroad. So don't be too worried about that. The most important thing is that it is a good match with you academically and in terms of your academic interest, broader speaking. Maybe not on the specific course, but in a broader sense.
Yeah. In case of that a host university's course catalog is not finished, how should I deal with that when choosing courses during my application? I've been looking at a university in Mexico, Tec de Monterrey, but their course catalog is not complete according to the representative at DTU. What should I do in that case?
Okay, so there are two questions here. There's one specifically for Tec de Monterrey in Mexico, and I think actually talking to our contact there is a good idea. That would be Laura Hammersmith. You can find her email online, and you can also book a meeting with her should you have any more concerns with that, because they are in a special transition, a special situation there. Regarding courses in general, though, it is good to know that you looking at courses for fall of 23 will most likely not be possible. In that case, we actually recommend that you look at courses 1 year before, and that will be this fall of 22, because most likely the courses that you find in fall of 22 will be very similar to the courses you find in fall of 23. So this is a general rule that holds up with the vast majority of our partners. But for Tec de Monterrey, there might be a special situation. So for that particular university, I recommend that you talk to our colleague who is the contact for that.
Yeah. Is having a New Zealand nationality good enough for the language requirement?
In many cases, it is, but I would recommend that you ask in the specific for the specific university that you are considering. And so that would be asking either me or the contact at DTU for the specific agreement, and then we can look into it. I would think in most cases it would be sufficient, but it's a relevant question, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah. Should I have chosen all courses that I wish to take? Was told that it's only later you need to choose courses when you've been selected for the university.
Absolutely. So no, you're not supposed to choose all the courses that you want to take. Also for the mere fact that at this point you can only type in 3 courses. You may have to take 4 or 5 courses depending on how many credits each course is, of course. So this is just an indication of your course interest at the particular partner. Don't think of it as more than that. But of course, it is important that you look at the courses and make sure that there are options there that you like and that you find interesting, and that could also transfer to your program, or is likely to transfer to your program.
For a master's student, how many ACTS can we take on exchange?
So for all students, you have to take at least 20 credits that you transfer to your DTU degree. So that counts for all students. For master students, there are no specific differences to that rule. So that also means that you have to take 20 ECTS, and that's important to be aware of, because you need to have room for that, so to speak. So you need to have 20 most likely elective points left when you leave to go abroad. At least, of course. There's no specific max on how many courses you can take or how many credits you can transfer back, but I would say that taking more than 30 is not something we would recommend. Maybe in some cases it makes sense, but at the end of the day, we also recommend that you have some time to allow yourself to get into the culture, and adjusting to a new university system will also take some energy. So going for more credits than that might be a little tough, but in the end, that's of course your call.
Can I use English B from high school, HF, I don't know what that is in English, as a language test and upload it under high school diploma?
Like I mentioned with the earlier as well, I think so that depends on the partner. So you need to look at the specific partner page and see what they require. For some, it will be fine, particularly in Australia, it may be okay. Also, depending on what grades you got, though. For North America, it will not be sufficient.
Is the application process for the E3 universities different?
So global E3 is a different system, and I don't think I'm gonna get a lot into that today, because it is a different process. But mainly after this step, when it comes to this application process, this portal and filling in this application, it is actually quite similar. Instead of putting in a university, you just put in global E3 like this, for example. Let me just find it here. And then you put in courses for the first priority you would have within that network. But I would recommend that if you have more questions about Global E3, book a meeting with me if you can't find all the different answers on the Beyond Borders page for Global E3.
Yeah. What do you do if you're applying to universities with different language requirements? So you fulfill the requirements using the DTU language statement for one university, but need a TOEFL for another.
So in a case like that, you will probably have to merge the different documents into one file and upload both of them, and then put that, explain all of that in the box, in this box. This is of course meant for other relevant language competences, but the idea would still be that you could write in here what you've uploaded and why. We should be able to see that. I would also say that most likely there will be one university that has the stricter requirement of the two, and as long as you go with that, it will be fine. In the case that that is mentioned in the question, the stricter would be the TOEFL test for sure. So in that case, I would put in a registered for test, and then put in TOEFL, and fill it in like that. And then right down here, I've also included the B2 statement from DTU among the uploaded files.
Yep. I am on the first semester of my master's and therefore don't have any grades yet. How do I know which universities I can apply to considering GPA requirements?
So in that case, you would need to calculate your GPA based on your bachelor's program that you applied for admission with to DTU. So actually, when you go to our study abroad.dtu.dk and find the GPA calculation sheet, you will type in the grades that you have for abroad, and it should spit out a Danish GPA, and then you would type that in here, and that would be what you apply with in this process.
Outside of Denmark, how many master's degrees can we apply using one application?
Okay, so that's a little So first of all, you don't apply for any master's degrees when you apply through this. You apply for exchange, so you don't get any degrees out of that. That's important to be aware of. You can apply for as many priorities as you will. Actually, so I think the system might cut you off at like 15 or something, but in principle you can apply for up to 15 priorities here. So hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, if not, feel free to rephrase it. Yeah.
What if you have two courses transferred to your bachelor to combination of one course? One is passed fail, the other is graded. How do I put this into my GPA sheet?
So you would have to put it in the way that it's registered at DTU. So whatever it looks like on the transcript you have from your current degree, that will be the way that you type it in.
Do you need a signature for level B2 documents for the language statement?
Not at this point, at least. So this is just a selection within DTU, and you can simply use the language statement you can find on studyabroad.dtu.dk when that is sufficient for those partners, right? And you don't need to get that signed as part of this process. Maybe you'll need it to get it signed later on, but definitely not at this point.
Okay. Yeah, should the courses with grading pass be included in GPA calculation? That's
so no, if they are simply passed courses, then they are not included in the GPA calculation.
Is it is it important that there's a coherence between the courses that you choose for the university that you apply to and the study line at DTU? And will this be recorded and put up somewhere after the meeting?
So this is recorded, and you would be able to rewatch it at some point when we get it uploaded. But regarding the courses, it is in the end, it's important that you take 20 ECTS worth of courses that you can actually transfer to your degree. Okay, but for example, if you have if you're doing your bachelor's level degree at DTU or your master's level, then the elective points would actually allow you to transfer a lot of flexibility, as long as it's like science or engineering or some business courses. It would usually be able to transfer back to your electives. If you are a Bachelor of Engineering, in Danish that is Diplom-ingeniør, it may be a little different, where you have to be a little more specific about the courses. In that case, it could be a good idea perhaps to talk to your heads of studies about what courses to look for at different partners. So in that way, it is not important that there's a direct coherence between your program and the courses you choose. As long as they can be transferred in the end, that's perfectly fine. And for many students, that would be possible with a fairly wide array of courses.
Okay. We actually are a bit over time, but we still have I still have 31 unread messages. So we have a lot of them. So I think that maybe we can answer the questions. Maybe you can write to us directly after this meeting if you have any questions for us international partnership managers, and you can see the contact details on the Beyond Borders pages. What do you say, Jeppe?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Feel free to do that. You are always welcome to ask the questions that you have. So yeah, you can find our contact details there. And if you need a more in-depth talk with any of us, if you have questions about a specific partner, remember that you can actually book an online meeting with the relevant person. You can also find a way to do that on studyabroad.dtu.dk. Because then we can have a little bit of like 20 minutes or something like that, where we can go into depth with what the specific questions you have for a specific partner. And sometimes that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it for now. So thank you for listening and watching, and yeah, we hope that you will submit your applications before the deadline, and we look really forward to processing them. So yeah, have a nice day.